So it goes back to my school days. I went to a school which was a Gurukul kind of school, where at the age of 10, we used to go live in jungles at a height of 3,700 feet height. And we used to live in ashram. We used to do all the work ourselves. We'll clean dishes, clean toilets by turn. It was at that place that I somehow decided that I want to go into research field, and maybe at age of 11 or 12, I don't remember how it happened. But once I decided, then I stuck to that. I never changed my mind. I've changed fields. So when I was in my school, I was planning to go into particle physics. When I came to college, I wanted to work on astrophysics and black holes. In fact, I worked on that. I worked with Dr. J.V. Nardikar in TIFAC on black holes. I was going to University of California, Berkeley to do my PhD in 1981. Just before going, I had worked in the summer with Dr. Nardikar on black holes. All my planning was based on that. My admission in Berkeley was based on that. But something happened, and I changed my mind to work in nuclear fusion. And I would like to narrate that incident. I was about to take a flight out of country, and that was my first flight ever in the life. It was a flight where I had to go to San Francisco via Japan. So I had to fly to Japan, wait for a day, and then take the next flight to San Francisco. We were all waiting in Delhi in JNU campus. The flight was at 4 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people had come to see me off. And one of my uncles, who had paid half the money of traveling, he asked me this question that now that you are going to US, what kind of research work you will do? At that particular moment, it was kind of midnight, suddenly something struck me. I said that, is astrophysics or black holes going to help India in some way? Should I really do it? And I had never thought about it, but I answered to him that I will either work on nuclear fusion or space physics. It was very surprising because I had never thought of that, never planned it, but it just came out of my mouth. And later on, when I went to US, actually, I moved into nuclear fusion. Without knowing what is happening in India, I had no idea whether India is going to work on this, not going to work. I just wanted to help country in some sense, started that. Luckily, when I was doing my PhD, the work in India had also started. So I was probably the first PhD from India in nuclear fusion area. So that's how I got into this area. So I always wanted to be a researcher from age of 11, 12. I have moved into different areas, but that was there ingrained from childhood in my mind. I don't remember any particular person, but I do remember that when at the age of 11 or 12, there was a science club in my school. And that organized, it was Ramanujan's birthday. So I volunteered to talk about him. So I gave a speech on Ramanujan's life. And I was very good in mathematics. And an interesting learning was that one of my teachers, a maths teacher, never used to solve a problem on the board himself. We never knew whether he can solve or not. But whenever he would only write the problem, and the students were asked to solve. Whoever solves first goes to the board and solves it. To make sure that we are the first to solve, we used to go to library and read every book that was possible and be ready. So in that course, we learned maximum. And so I used to be good in mathematics. But at some stage, I realized that I needed to be grounded to reality, and physics was a good combination of mathematics and reality. And that's why I decided to go into physics. But I don't remember any specific role model at that time. So when I joined TIFAC as executive director in 2013, before that, TIFAC had planned to develop a document called Technology Vision 2035. I would like to show it to your audience. This document, Technology Vision 2035. This document follows another document that was prepared earlier, that was Technology Vision 2020. That was released in 1996, which was done by TIFAC. That time, Dr. Kalam used to be chairman of TIFAC. Then recently when I was there, Dr. Kakutkar used to be chairman. So this document had started, the work on that had started around 2010-11. So when I joined, it was my task to carry forward this and bring it to a fruitful conclusion. So that was one of the major challenges that we had to face. So this document is a vision for the country, and there are 12 roadmaps to achieve this vision in different sectors. Out of that, 6 was released during my tenure. Hopefully, next 6 would also be released subsequently. If I just mention briefly Technology Vision 2020 and 2035, Technology Vision 2020 talked about developed India. Dr. Kalam, till his last breath, talked about developed India. When I met him in 2013, after joining TIFAC, he told me, you still have 7 years to achieve that goal. Make sure that we do it. But when we were preparing this document and the discussions that we had, the character of this document started to change. We have no longer talked about developed India, but we are talking about developing quality of life of every Indian citizen. So we moved from India to Indians, because we are not talking of GDP here, we are not talking of who is poor, who is rich, we are talking about quality of life of every single Indian citizen. That has been the focus of this document. And fortunately, Prime Minister not only wrote the foreword to this document, he released it in 2016 January in Indian Science Congress, but also Prime Minister's office has given direction to all ministries and departments in the Government of India to follow this document and take the agenda forward, with Niti Aayog being given the responsibility for coordinating all of this effort. So 31st January 2018, I made the presentation in Niti Aayog just about a year back, and agenda items were discussed and action plans were done, and hopefully things are being followed up. So that was one of the major challenges that I had faced. But as we went along, we found that I had to convert this organization from being, it was set up as an intellectual organization, as a think tank. But somewhere down the line, we became like a funding agency, because we started to promote various schemes by funding and so on. So a major task was to convert it back to a think tank. So becoming from administrative organization to back to intellectual organization. I would say that to 80%, I was successful, maybe 20% I was not. But TIFAC became recognized as a think tank, and even Prime Minister in his foreword writes TIFAC as India's technology think tank. So that recognition came, and then people started to recognize its real task, which was an intellectual organization. So I'll take a couple of examples. So first, the Technology Vision 2035 itself. As I said, that there's a set of 13 documents. A vision for the country, along with 12 roadmaps in different sectors. When we're trying to write all the 12 sectoral roadmaps, I put education as the first one on the top of the list, because I felt that for everything, education is the most important. So for example, if I look at, there is a document that I have attached as part of this main document, that 12 sectors as I mentioned. Each of these is a separate document of 200 to 250 pages. But we have put one-page summary for each of these. So for example, you see the first one in this list is education. Okay. Then comes healthcare and so on. So education is extremely important, and that's why I put it there. What we have done is that we have defined quality of life by 12 parameters, which we call prerogatives in the document. 6 of them are what we call individual prerogatives, and 6 are collective. For each of these prerogatives, we have defined certain broad targets for the country and certain focus targets for the country. And for each of these, we have a technology table. And technology table has 4 columns. First column, the leftmost column is technology which is ready to deploy. That means technology which is available off the shelf, within the country, outside the country, but not being used on large scale. The second column is technology which needs to go from lab to field. This is where India is extremely weak, where most of our work remains within lab, does not go out into the market. The third is technology which needs targeted development. So actually, those areas where we set targets which are very clear, for example, we have succeeded in space, atomic energy, missiles. But most of the other areas of research, we don't set very clear targets. It's a scattered effort. So we have put a list of technologies which are needed to fulfill those prerogatives, and That column, there are about 60 technologies. Out of that, Niti Aayog has taken 20 for the first phase of implementation. The last one in that table is what we call technology and imagination. And this happens to be the most interesting one. We put those technologies there which we thought may happen, may not happen, may take 15 years' time, may take 20 years' time. Surprisingly, before we could finish the document and give it to Prime Minister, so we started sometime in 2013 and Prime Minister took over on 26th May. So we started working on Technology Vision 2035 document sometime in 2013. Prime Minister took over office on 26th May 2014. I received the request from Prime Minister's office for a copy of this document, which was not even ready at that time. The draft version, I sent it to Prime Minister's office. And very hurriedly, I got the document to be designed professionally, finalized the whole thing. So I wanted the document to look professional. It should not look like a boring document that typically government documents are like that. So I wanted it to look like that. And finally, in November 2014, we submitted the final copy to Prime Minister's office. During this 1.5 years' time that it took us to prepare the document, the technology and imagination sectors, what we found that some of the technology which we thought was very uncertain started to happen. So two trends are very clear. One is that technology is happening at a much faster rate than we expect. Second is technology diffusion is also taking place at a much faster rate. This also means that technology obsolescence is also extremely high. And so we have to be prepared for technologies that are likely to come. This is important from government point of view. It is important from education point of view. So when I'm teaching students, they have to be ready for the technologies that are likely to come and not what has already gone. Unfortunately, in India, our education system changes very slow. Our university systems are very slow to respond. And this means that students, when they come out of their colleges, they're not employable because the technology that they have been taught is out of thing. So this was a very important learning, and many things have happened. I'll just give one example. Hyperloop technology came into the public domain in 2013. We put this document, the Hyperloop concept. Mr. Nitin Gadkari somehow got a copy of this document. He went through that, invited us to make presentation on 8 technologies out of this. And he went and met Elon Musk, invited him to come to India. So the net result was that Amravati to Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, signed an agreement to cover 42 kilometers in 6 minutes. And Mumbai to Pune was signed about 1 year back, last February 19th on 2018, to cover that distance about 20 to 25 minutes using Hyperloop technology. So just putting that word happened. Similarly, we did a retrospection of our Technology Vision 2020 document that we had released in 1996. We wanted to see that how India has progressed since then. Are we close to that vision or we are not close to that vision? We divided into 4 different groups. We compared that to horse's gait. We have categorized them in galloping India, cantering India, trotting India, and walking India. I'll just take the last one, walking India, which is the failure story. In the bottom of that list, you will see we have mentioned waterways. We have said that we had visualized in 1996 that 8 to 9% of passenger and goods traffic will happen through waterways. But for 18 years, nothing was done. Interestingly, Mr. Nitin Gadkari was also in charge of this surface transport, and he planned 111 waterways. And I was surprised to see that the first waterways, National Waterways 1 from Varanasi to Haldia, has already been inaugurated. The number 2 is going to be inaugurated in March on Brahmaputra. So you can see that a document like this can have a lot of impact, and I'm very happy to see that impact happening. So that was the major challenge that we faced in TIFAC, and I'm happy to report that a lot of that is happening. We are seeing the impact, and it's not the impact by spending money, it's the impact by giving ideas to the planners. When luckily my field of working has been somewhat futuristic, so nuclear fusion is a futuristic thing. I worked on sensor network and other areas, which are all futuristic. In fact, just before I joined TIFAC in April 2013, in March we had a workshop in Delhi. It was an Indo-UK workshop on foresight. Okay. At the end of the 3-day workshop, there were a list of 30 technologies that were identified as futuristic, which we need to work on. I found that out of those 6, I had worked personally. So it is amazing because out of 36, I had worked personally. So luckily, I had been into this area, not as a futurist, I would say, but as a future technology developer, I was involved. Now, formally, when you try to do that, and when I went to TIFAC, actually, I found that even the expert committee that we set up to help us out in different sectors, they said they do not know what's going to happen in the next 25 years. They said that in certain areas, we can't even tell what's going to happen in 5 years. For example, computer areas, information and communication technology, where things are moving very fast. So then what we had to do was to actually train the TIFAC scientists into how to visualize future, okay? How to foresee the trends that are likely to come. So there are 2 parts of this. One is called horizon scanning, by which we keep track of technological changes happening around the globe. So in fact, we set up a Facebook page, which still works, and a Twitter account associated with that, where every day 15 to 20 technology news of global technological changes we start to share. Okay. And now that is continuing, but also for my university here, I have set up a similar page where I share technology news, which makes sure that people who want to follow this, they are aware of this. And this, we bring news from different places, different sources. Now, what happens is that when you are aware of this, even the experts in a particular field may not be aware of something happening in that. So we have to pick up what are called weak signals. Okay, these weak signals are something that may happen in one area and may have major impact on another area. I will give you one example. 3D printers. Okay. Now it's coming to vocabulary. Quite often people have heard about 3D printers. When I had gone to TIFAC in 2013, in TIFAC itself, nobody was aware of 3D printing. So I organized one discussion on 3D printing. One of the young scientist, he actually made a presentation after going through that. And then I organized an exhibition of 3D printing and so on. Now the 3D printing technology may think that, okay, it's important for engineers, but actually it's going to have major impact on medical sciences. Now, doctors would completely be unaware of this, and suddenly they realize that it has come in a big way, which is impacting everything they are doing. So these are called weak signals, which happens in one particular area, but it starts to dominate something else in a very major way without any notice. You don't realize it comes into your area without anything. Like education also is happening. Online learning is starting to become very, very important. So we are not sure whether these brick and mortar universities will continue to exist for the next 20 years or 30 years, because most of things would move. So things are happening like that. So we as a futurist, we have certain methods of doing this, and we have to train. One more thing that I had to do was to make sure that we are in line with the international practices that are being followed there. So 2013, I participated in an event which was all the organizations of various governments of different countries were participating in. It's called Government Foresight Network. Okay. So in European Union, I attended that first meeting in 2013. And then actually I offered to host the 2015 meeting. 2014 meeting was in South Korea, so we went there and we started to participate in this. So then we understood that, okay, what they are doing or what we are doing is not much different. We are at par. So that gave us confidence that yes, we are doing at par with things. So these 6 internal training and exposure to international world, both of these were helpful to us in that way. So actually, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India runs a program to help women with mid-career break. Now, because of social reasons, marriages, and so on, many women give up their jobs, and after 5 years, 6 years, or 10 years, they want to come back to mainstream. They find it very, very difficult. So, as part of Department of Science and Technology scheme, there's a women scientist scheme. There are 3 components of that: A, B, and C. The C component was run by TIFAC, my organization. In that, actually, we train women in intellectual property related activities. We give them 1-year training. We also give them fellowship per month as a financial incentive so they don't suffer financially. In that program, it is also referred to as Kiran IPR. Okay. That program the TIFAC is running from, they conceptualized in 2002 and 2004 first batch started. When I joined TIFAC, the 7th batch was already running. So I did not have much to do there. But I realized that the purpose for which this program has been set up is not serving that purpose. I found that it was mostly young women who are fresh from college, 21 years, 22 years. They were the ones taking advantage of that. So I had to try to find out that how do you define who has had a mid-career break? And I found that we're not doing anything like this. So then we discussed and we said, okay, let's put a minimum age limit, and we put it as 27 years. So the 8th batch of students that came in had this minimum age limit, which means that the freshers were not competing with them. Because for somebody who had a break, it was very difficult to compete with freshers. The second thing we did was that we used to conduct exams at 4 places in the country. Pune is one of the centers, Chennai, Kharagpur, and of course Delhi, because we were based in Delhi. But I said that these women who have to travel long distance, suppose somebody wants to come from Guwahati or Meghalaya, they would have to either come to Delhi or to Kharagpur. It's going to be a very long journey. So to expect a disadvantaged group to travel long distances and come to give exam is not a good idea. So I said that let's conduct exam online and let it be at least each capital of the state must have these centers. So we made the preparation for that online and so on. And then we conducted about 41 places across the country and all that. And I use social media to actually promote this, because normally we used to give newspaper advertisements, which nowadays we don't see newspaper as much. And so we use social media, and that means the number of applicants increased by leaps and bounds. With all these efforts and the past effort that had been done in this program, it had tremendous impact on the whole country's intellectual property regime. For example, 10% of all patent professionals come out of this program. There were no women in patent area. This created that. Not only that, it also brought science and technology people into patent area, because earlier it was only people from law background used to come. So all these impacts and the changes we made, when there was a government announcement regarding this award from Ministry of Women and Child, then we decided to apply for that, and I subsequently got the application form changed in a way that it showed the impact of the program, and we were selected for this award. The ministry officials told me that they had made an exception. Normally they would not give to a government scheme because you can see that it's part of a job, but they felt the impact was so much that they were compelled to give this award, and that was handed over by President of India on 8th March 2016. Actually, patents have their origin in industrial revolution that was taking place in 1750s. Earlier, the manufacturing was distributed. India and China used to produce 20 to 30% of global manufacturing they used to do. And mostly India was above China and so on. So if you look at the history of 2000 years, from 1st AD to about 1800 AD, 20 to 30%, sometimes China above, sometimes India above. When the industrial revolution was taking place, when centralized manufacturing started to happen, that's where the concept of patents came in, where the manufacturer wanted to ensure that nobody can duplicate their product. Okay, that's how this concept came. At the same time, those industrial revolution was taking place, they needed a lot of raw materials because they were doing it at a very large scale, and they needed finished markets for the products. So, unfortunately, India became part of that system where we became a colony, we became supplier of raw materials to Europe and market of finished goods. And so the time when the patents regime came, we were not independent in some sense. So we were being exploited through this process. After about 70 years of independence that we have had, unfortunately, the same system still continues, where our raw material goes to outside countries and we keep buying the finished goods from there. If I get a time, I'll tell you a story about guar gum, through which I came to know of all of this, what is called drain theory, and then we have continued in this. So, what we found in guar gum actually, that about 3,000 crores rupees of guar gum is exported. Those who are not familiar with guar gum, in Maharashtra it's called gawar phali. In English it is a GUAR. Actually, it's a Sanskrit word gau plus ahar. This is how guar has come. It's worldwide, it's called guar only. The powder of that is called guar gum. Guar gum we were exporting to the tune of 3,000 crores rupees till about 2011. In 2012, it jumped to 21,000 crores rupees. So in 1 year, it jumped 7 times. This happened because it was being used for food and pharma sector, but it was also being used for fracking industry in US by hydrofracturing. They were trying to bring shale oil and gas outside. There, this product was being used, and then 2012, it was allowed to be produced on commercial basis. Suddenly, the demand jumped up. 80% of guar gum is exported by India, 15% by Pakistan, and rest of the world only 5%. We were asked by Ministry of Commerce of Government of India to look into this sector to boost its export through technology infusion. When we prepared the report and released in 2015, we found something very interesting. First, we found that the guar gum, which is the powder that you take out the seeds of guar and make it a powder form, and we export that. It is not used directly in the fracking industry. It is further chemically processed. We don't do any of that. For example, China buys from us, let's say at 100 rupees kg, and they sell it at 5 to 10 times more. So suppose they sell 1,000 rupees kg. Who makes more money? The China who makes more money, not India. Okay. So what China did, they developed the processes, they patented those, they bought the raw material from us, and they started exporting, making more money. This story is very interesting because if you look at, we did the patent analysis of guar gum. There are about 12,000 patents in that sector globally. So while 80% of export is from India, India's contribution in that patent regime is less than 1%. Okay. So where we are strong, the raw material we control, we have monopoly, we don't focus our R&D on that. So we need to focus on our strength, our problems, and not focus on somebody else's problem. Right now, we have been focusing on other problems. We try to prove ourselves good in eyes of outside world rather than prove ourselves for our own society. So we need to focus on our problems. Our industry needs to work on that. Our scientists need to work on that. So just like guar gum, there are hundreds of similar materials and minerals with the same stories being repeated. So we need to understand that where we are strong, we need to focus on that and develop things, patent them. And awareness is of course an issue. Most of our scientists and researchers are not aware of that, and TIFAC is involved with that also, and so on. So there's a lot of steps to be done, but main focus has to be on country.